The challenges of African rescue efforts during the transatlantic slave trade. During the transatlantic slave trade, millions of Africans were forcibly taken from their homelands and transported across the Atlantic Ocean to work as slaves in the Americas. Given the immense suffering caused by the trade, a key question arises: why didn't African societies launch large-scale efforts to rescue their captured people? The answer lies in a combination of geographical, technological, political, and economic factors that made such missions nearly impossible. However, some African leaders, such as Queen Nzinga of Ndongo, fiercely resisted European incursions and fought to protect their people from enslavement. Geographical and logistical challenges. One of the greatest obstacles to African-led rescue missions was the vast distance and difficulty of ocean travel. The Atlantic Ocean is an immense barrier, requiring advanced ships and navigational knowledge to cross. While African societies had developed boats and ships for river and coastal trade, they did not possess large, deep-sea vessels capable of making transatlantic journeys like European ships. Additionally, the enslaved Africans were taken to distant and unfamiliar territories, making it even more difficult for their homelands to locate and rescue them. Limited naval power and European military dominance. Unlike European nations such as Portugal, Spain, Britain, and France, African kingdoms did not have powerful naval forces equipped for long-distance combat. European navies controlled the Atlantic Ocean, heavily guarding the shipping routes and ports that were essential to the slave trade. Even if African rulers had attempted to send ships, they would have faced overwhelming military resistance from well-armed European fleets. Queen Nzinga's resistance to the slave trade. Despite these challenges, some African leaders took a strong stance against European involvement in the slave trade. One of the most notable figures was Queen Nzinga of Ndongo and Matamba, present-day Angola. Nzinga was a fierce warrior, a brilliant strategist, and a skilled diplomat who resisted Portuguese expansion and the enslavement of her people. Nzinga first came into power in the early 1600s when she negotiated with the Portuguese. However, when she realized that diplomacy alone would not stop the Portuguese, she led her forces in a prolonged guerrilla war against them. She allied with the Dutch and organized military campaigns to disrupt Portuguese slave raids and free captives before they could be shipped away. Nzinga also offered refuge to runaway slaves and African resistance fighters, helping to build settlements where people could live free from Portuguese control. Through her leadership, she established Matamba as a powerful kingdom that resisted European dominance for decades. Although she could not stop the transatlantic slave trade entirely, her actions inspired future African resistance movements. Africa was not a unified nation but a vast continent with many different kingdoms, empires, and ethnic groups. Some of these groups were directly involved in the slave trade, selling prisoners of war or criminals to European traders in exchange for guns, textiles, and other goods. While some African leaders, such as Nzinga and King Afonso I of Congo, protested the slave trade and sought to end it, others saw it as an opportunity for economic and political gain. The lack of unity among African states made it difficult to organize a collective effort to stop the trade or launch rescue missions. Fighting against European slave traders, leaders like Queen Nzinga led military campaigns to resist European incursions and free captured people before they were shipped away. Escaping and forming free communities, enslaved Africans in the Americas often escaped and formed independent settlements, such as the Maroon communities in the Caribbean and South America. Enslaved Africans launched numerous revolts, including the Haitian Revolution, 1791 to 1804, in which formerly enslaved people successfully overthrew French rule and established the first Black Republic. Though Nzinga could not stop the slave trade entirely, her defiance and leadership inspired future generations to resist oppression. The legacy of these struggles remains an essential part of history today.